Are you having a hard time with communicating with your partner about how you feel? Are you having a hard time resolving conflict with each other? If so, today's episode is for you. Please join in as me and Miss Dominique Russell talk about communication between intimate partner relationships. Also, we created a quiz specifically just for you to be able to understand what your communication style is between you and your partner. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast and leave us a 5-star review, and we'll talk to you in just a moment. Welcome to the Faith and Mental Wellness Podcast. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Miss Dominique Russell. Welcome, Miss Dominique. Thank you so much for being here. So before we get into it, I want to go ahead and introduce her to you all. So she is a licensed professional counselor, a certified life coach, and an author. She received her Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Bradley University and a Master's of Arts in Counseling from North Park University. She's been practicing traditional and Christian counseling for the past 6 years and has started a coaching business called Mind of Christ Coaching to assist individuals in developing a mind of Christ when it comes to discovering and fulfilling their purpose in their lives. She has a podcast called Christian Girl in a Godless World, where she discusses many issues that surround being a Christian in today's times and how to navigate those moments. She also enjoys singing, composing, and producing songs, reading, watching documentaries, and spending time with her husband and her dog. So welcome you guys to Miss Dominique Russell. So today's topic, as you guys can see by the title, is all about romantic relationships and communication. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to hear what she has to say about this topic because it's so needed. We all go through different times in our life. We might have some kind of conflict in our relationships, right? Whether you're married, whether you're dating someone. I truly believe that today's topic is going to really help you. So without further ado, Dominique, can you please explain to us what is the definition of communication and why it is important?
Yes, so communication is really just the way by which we share and receive information from one another. Like it can be verbal, it can be nonverbal. So it's just the way that we begin to gather information to understand one another, understand each other's thoughts, feelings, experiences, and being able to know how to be present, for each other. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what I would say communication is, just in a general sense.
Gotcha. So you mentioned the verbal and the nonverbal communication. So it's not always what we say, but also our actions as well.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's get into it. So so can you provide some scenarios, or red flags of poor communications in romantic relationships?
Yes. So it's so many, but I'll just hit on a few because it's things that I've seen, in my own marriage and also just with, clients and things that I've worked with individually and through couples. But a lot of red flags that I've seen is just blaming the other person. So when you get into a conflict, just saying, oh, it's your fault. You're the reason why this happened. Instead of being able to step back and just look and really look at the whole situation and say, okay, what elements, brought us to this place where we're disagreeing, so not just kind of jumping on the bandwagon and just saying, oh, it's your fault, but being able to say, okay, what's the real issue here and not just the person. So blaming the person, being defensive, when someone does kind of challenge what you've done or maybe brought up or held you accountable for your behavior and you get on the defensive really quickly instead of being able to step back and say, okay, let me think about that. Let me see, did I actually, do these things? Or not just saying, oh, you just think bad of me, so that's why you said that. So that's a very big red flag. Not being able to have a conversation with your partner without it ending in an argument. And that's a big thing. So it's like every disagreement doesn't have to end in an argument. But when both people are just on the defense, like I said, just feeling very insecure about themselves, which that's, a lot of the times is the case. It's a lot of insecurity. So they begin to, get into a whole argument when it never needed to get that way in the first place. So those are some red flags, that I've seen.
So good. What's coming to me now as well to ask you more about is Having poor communication through the lens of trauma. Is there
Oh,
anything that like so before we get into that discussion, of course we know that trauma can be childhood trauma,
mhm.
sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse.
Yeah,
There's so many different types of trauma in childhood, things we have been through that cause us to communicate a certain way. So,
right.
in your experience and your knowledge, can you share with us more about how our trauma lenses can affect our communication?
Absolutely. Wow. So yeah, like you said, Shakita, it can be through childhood and I've seen that so much, just in the field of therapy that so many people wear what they've been through on their backs. And I would give this analogy to a lot of clients where it's like wearing that backpack and you just putting all of these stones and you're just carrying everything with you and it's heavy, and you're struggling to walk, you're struggling to move forward because you're holding on. You won't let go of these things. So when you meet a romantic partner, you bring all of that into that relationship. You bring, that baggage and then you expect them to fix it. You expect them to just automatically be able to hold that space when you haven't really taken the time to deal with your own the trauma that you've experienced through your own individual therapy or just if you're a part of a church or anything like that, going to get pastoral counseling or having some sort of mentorship where you can really begin to talk these issues out and work them out so you can be in a healed place to have a successful relationship. So I will also say that, people who deal with trauma and bring that into relationships, these are the main ones that get on the defensive, where everything is my fault. Like, so when their partner brings to them, a disagreement or something that they've done that they don't agree with, they automatically internalize it and say, oh, it's something with me. I must be the issue. Or, so I've seen a lot of that, and even, I would say parental, and child connections, where the parent and child didn't have a good relationship growing up. So now that person goes into a relationship and now they don't trust their partner because of the hurt that they experience from parents. So that's another layer that I see a lot of. So yeah, being able to not deal with the trauma that you've had in your life, it causes you to not be able to see things, from more than just one perspective. You only kind of see it from your lens because you're walking around with that hurt. You're walking around with, kind of that rose-colored glasses. And you're not able to say, okay, there are other alternatives, there are other perspectives on the other side of this.
Wow, that was so good. You took the words out of my mouth and in my head when you was talking about, asking for help and you're trying to carry all this stuff
Hmm.
in your backpack. And
Hmm.
oftentimes we assume that people or your partner, right, can see
Hmm.
what you're carrying, what you're going through when you haven't communicated that, and then you get angry or upset or feel some kind of way
Hmm.
because, like, well, they don't see me. Well, you haven't communicated that because everyone has different
Right.
experiences. Everyone,
Hmm.
yes. And so poor communication don't just start in that relationship with you with that partner.
Mm-mm.
It's like it's a mirror.
Definitely not. Hmm.
It
Hmm.
really is a
It
mirror.
absolutely. Oh, that's deep. Yeah, the mirror. Wow.
Mhm.
Especially in marriage.
Yeah,
Especially in marriage,
especially
because
in
a
marriage.
lot of stuff, man, a lot of stuff you may know about yourself, but
Yes.
when your partner brings it out and they say, "Hey, I'm
Mhm.
seeing this,
Yes.
and this is something that you need to maybe work on," or God is bringing this to me to say, "Hey, this is an issue. I need you to work on this." Man, and then you really begin to reflect and you don't internalize it so deeply and you don't look at it as them being defensive but just trying to help you be better,
Mhm.
then that's when you begin to actually improve, and move
Mhm.
forward.
Right, right. And communication styles are so important to know and
Hmm.
understand as well. And so with that being said, what are some different types of communication styles that you want to share with us today?
hmm Yeah. So you have, I'll start with the good and then go into the bad.
Okay. My prayer is that you are enjoying this episode thus far. I have been having a great time talking about this with Miss Dominique. She's amazing. Be sure to go check her out. Check out her social media channels. And also don't forget to take our free quiz to test your communication style in order to improve your communication with your partner. Stay tuned for part 2.
So the communication style that we all should have is being able to have more assertive communication. So you're being able to actually healthily express, yourself and what you need, but also being able to hear the needs of other people and being able to communicate even if you disagree, right? So it's that healthy exchange where I can communicate my emotions, I can communicate what I need, and I can also receive what you have to say to me, and once again not internalizing it and getting on the defensive. Okay, so that's the good type of communication that we should all have, not even in just romantic relationships, but just all across the board in any relationships that you have. Okay, so now getting into the negatives. Passive communication. So this is when you just don't communicate at all. Maybe you opt out of communicating out of fear of being judged or rejected, or fear of your partner not, being able to actually respond to you. So it's like, I'm just not going to say anything because every time I say something, they get mad at me. They don't listen to what I have to say, or they disregard what I have to say. So I'm just going to stop communicating altogether. Okay. And then you have a passive aggressive communication. So that's when it's like you're communicating sometimes without communicating. So there's where the nonverbal comes in, where there is this hostility or aggression because you're upset about something. You want to express something, but maybe you've received that rejection, or you didn't receive much feedback before, so now it's like I'm communicating with you that I'm upset, but I'm not actually expressing it with my words. Or maybe I'm throwing things, or I'm making snide comments, so it's like you're communicating without actually saying what needs to be said. Okay. And then aggressive, just outright aggressive communication. It's so hostile. You're angry, you're irritated, and it comes out, in this strong anger expression because you like, I'm upset right now, and I need to show that in a physical sense that I'm upset because I don't know how to regulate my emotions in the best way. So I would say those are some, communication styles that are seen, very common.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm so glad that you touched on all four of those areas because, as you said before, like, I really hope that this is going to bring people more language to really be
Mm-hmm.
able to learn and be able to really articulate, what type of communication style they actually have. Because we all had
Mm-hmm.
them. We've all had them. Like you
Yep.
said earlier, I'm married, I can definitely look back and say, man, the first like few years of us being married was like, whoo, we had to learn each other,
Mm-hmm.
how he communicate,
Mm-hmm.
how I communicate. And I had to like learn how to communicate myself because with him about how I feel, what's going on, and I'll be upset all day. And then I finally tell him, I'm like, he don't see me upset. He don't see me mad.
Right.
Right. And then I finally tell him, he was like, why didn't you just say it? Why didn't you just tell
Yep.
me? And I'm like, oh, you're right.
Right.
And so,
Same
yeah,
here.
yeah. So I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that no couple just comes together and they have it all figured out, right?
Right. Definitely
Um,
not.
every single person is different with different upbringings and different backgrounds. So thank you for your transparency about that. And I don't mind
Mm-hmm.
being transparent as well. We're all
Right.
learning, and so we hope you guys are listening. Right, we've lived
Mm-hmm.
it, but we also understand, the tools and strategies of what you need to help you be a better communicator. And I
Yeah.
also want to touch on this too. So I definitely know people, who I know who are friends. Some are not friends. But there might be in a relationship with someone, and they're like, I keep saying over and over and over and over again, what I want, what I need, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like they're not changing, they're not listening, and like I don't know what else to do. And I'm like,
Mm.
girl, like what else you want? So do
Mm-hmm.
you have any advice for those people, men or women, who are saying that I'm talking to my partner about how I feel, but nothing's happening?
Yeah. So when that happens, I think it's really good to maybe get a third party in the picture. So this, you may need someone to kind of mediate, because if you're having individual conversations and you're still not getting anywhere, then it's like, okay, you might need to go ahead and seek out, some couples or marital, premarital counseling
Mhm.
to bring, to get more clarity and even have that third party break it down. And maybe they can, word it in a way that your partner will understand what you're saying and
Mhm.
even get to the root of why it's been difficult for them to understand what it is that you need. And also being able to bring up, are there some things that you don't understand about your partner? Is there a area where there is just kind of interference on both sides, to where
Mhm.
maybe he or she is communicating this, but you don't see that. And it's the same thing on the other end. So sometimes it's not always one sided, but we will tend to internalize it and just say, well, I'm communicating, I'm doing everything that I need to do. We think about us, but then we don't understand that in a relationship, it's not just about you, it's about both of you. So you have to also step back and say, okay, I realize that I'm not exactly getting what I need, but am I giving them what they need? Also, am I missing something on what it is that they need and what they have been trying to communicate, and I haven't been seeing it or understanding it? So that's what I would say for that.
Yes, I agree. That is so good. Thanks for sharing that. Ooh, that's so good. Because we can get
Mm-hmm.
self-centered. We can become very self-centered.
Mm-hmm.
Not still, because
Absolutely.
I always say men and women, we communicate and we internalize things differently. We really do. And we're so
Mm-hmm.
honest supposed to, because God built men
Yeah.
to be a certain way and they built us to be a
Mm-hmm.
certain way. So for us to expect our partners to be just like us is unrealistic. It's just not gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not gonna
Mm-mm.
happen.
Definitely not.
Mm-mm.
Definitely not.
Mm-hmm. So, can you provide 3 to 5, whatever you feel led to share, coping
Mm-hmm.
skills to help improve your communication with your partner?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, being able to use I statements.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I mean by that is saying, I was hurt when you did this, instead of saying, you always do this, so in that sense, you are taking responsibility for your own emotions
Yeah.
in the situation, not directing the hurt that you feel to your partner, but saying, hey, this hurt me. So being able to say, I was hurt when you did this, or I was hurt when you ignored me when I was trying to tell you about this situation, instead of just saying, you always ignore me, you don't care about me, so you see how it's very different ways of saying the same thing. The other one is blanketed in hurt and pain, but the other one says, I'm taking accountability for my emotions in this situation, but I'm not blaming you, but I'm saying your actions hurt me, so I'm coming right out the gate saying how I feel, and not, you know, covering it because I'm afraid of being vulnerable, or I think that being vulnerable with you is not going to be received well. So I'm just going to blame you instead of just coming right out the gate and saying, this is how I feel. Okay. So I statements are really important, and I have had to work on that. I'm still working on it to say, hey, I was hurt and not you did this. It's a big difference. I'm telling you it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love it. I love that because I'm just like you. I had to learn that and I had to teach to my clients. So I love teaching that as the number one go-to for communication
Mhm.
skill. And I'll share my quick testimony real quick. So, I remember
Yeah.
one day my husband had did something that I did not like. And, I was telling him, about something that I'm like, I don't think you should do that. It's not going to work out. Maybe you should just wait. And he didn't listen to me. And I knew what I was, really discerning, to be honest. But I'm like, okay, God, I'm like, he
Mhm.
gonna do it anyway. Nothing I can do. And so what I
Mhm.
told him, it didn't work out. And so instead of me, coming in and saying, oh, I told you shouldn't have did that. I told you I didn't do that. And so I remember
Mhm.
I was getting my hair done. I was at the salon and I just felt so like uneasy. And I was like, hey, I was like, whenever you don't listen to me, I feel unheard. I feel like you don't respect, what I'm saying, or you don't, trust my judgment. Girl, the next thing I
Yeah.
knew, I looked up. He was at the hair salon. And he had bought me some like
Oh,
food and all this stuff. And he was like,
oh,
that's the last thing I want you to feel is that I don't hear you because I always hear you. And I was like,
wow.
the power of an I statement. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Oh
And
my
I always
goodness.
say that when somebody cares about you and they love you and you do use the I
Hmm.
statement, I feel like the response will be more be better from them because you're not like
Hmm.
blaming them. You're not saying you should do this and you should do that, but you're saying, hey, when you did this particular action, it made me feel this way. And so what I was telling, my husband,
Yep.
like, I don't feel safe when you made this
Hmm.
decision. And he was
Hmm.
like, no, I don't want you to not feel safe. And I was just like, I was
Hmm.
feeling, I was just like, oh my
Yeah. Wow. I have
God.
had literally similar, it's like multiple similar experiences like that. That is so crazy because my husband's the same way. He has such a big heart. He's so loving and kind, and he always wants to make sure that I feel safe, I feel protected. So, when I don't feel like that, he internalizes it. So he's the same way. When I begin to word things in a different way and not get on a defensive, right? I know we've been talking about that, and I tell him like, hey, this really hurt me because, then he's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to come out that way. What can I do? What can we do to make this better? And that's the key. It helps to lead to that, you know, solution, being able to have that solution and say, okay, how can we move forward from that place? So we can better understand each other and better consider each other's needs and emotions.
I love it. It's so good. So you guys, we
Mm-hmm.
encourage you to try that strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Please try that strategy.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Yes, yes. Okay. So you have any other ones you want to share about how to improve
Yes.
communication?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being able to listen, to understand, and not just respond. And that's so important because when you get into like a heated exchange, a heated disagreement, and you're only listening to say, but no, da, 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 and you're not hearing what they said, it escalates the situation far further than it has to go. So when you listen, even if you are feeling upset, and when I tell you, and I want to be transparent because I struggle with this, there are days where I'm really good about it, and then it's a day where maybe it's not such a good day and I'm a little bit more on edge and I'm like, so I have to really actively work on this, right? And it's good for us to be transparent because we're professionals in mental health. Like we still have we still struggle, we still go through things, so this is
Yeah.
real, right?
Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, and we still feel emotions. We still, have our moments where we get offended and we get on the defensive and we're responding just to defend ourselves and not actually listening to what our partner is saying. So you have to actually listen to understand where they're at and not just to respond to like try to get a one up on them and be like, all right, we in the boxing ring. He threw this punch. Now let me throw the other punch back. Like, no, you are teammates, not opponents.
So I
Yeah.
remember when my husband and I first got married. We got in the fight, maybe like year 2 or 3, and I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, and
Hmm.
my husband and I was dealing with so much issues with family, and some
Hmm.
things had transpired with his family that I was so unhappy about. But
Hmm.
looking back, I see what God was doing now. But then, it's been my God, it's been well over a decade now. We've been married 15 years this summer. So,
Wow, amazing.
yes, girl. Yeah, we have so much wisdom to share with people, so much to share, so
Hmm.
much to share, girl. And so, my God, I remember he was like talking about something, and like I was like, I felt myself wanting to get like rat a tat, get crunk, like, oh no, he didn't.
Hmm.
And girl, I was
Hmm.
outside and he was in the house. So I turned around and I was getting ready to say something really nasty. Did you know the Holy
Hmm.
Spirit arrested my mouth? I couldn't
Whoa.
speak. The words would not even come out of
Wow.
my mouth. And at that moment, I was like, okay, God,
Whoa.
you are doing, I don't know what you're doing. So pretty much what God was showing me as I matured in my marriage, I matured as a woman of God. He was showing me your husband was already battling so much. He's trying to figure out how to balance
Mm.
his marriage and still honor
Mm-hmm.
you, but at the same time, deal with his family, dynamics, and
Yeah.
we were trying to find that happy medium. And so he was under a lot of pressure
Mm-hmm.
and try to figure this thing
Mm.
out. And so I always tell women, who are married and you're dating, right? You have to give your spouse time to, come into their own and don't automatically assume that they don't care about you. It's just that they're trying to
Right.
navigate, clinging to their wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a
Mm-hmm.
process. It don't happen immediately. And you're gonna have to
Yes.
allow Holy Spirit and allow God to come into that relationship and let him do some work because you can't do it on your
Mm-hmm.
own. So I had to learn, I
Right.
had to surrender all that to the God. I had to pray for a lot
Wow.
of things for years on my husband's behalf, right? Because he was
Mm-hmm.
battling with so much with his family. And so as I surrendered to God,
Mm.
God was able to do a quicker work. It took some time, but he had to
Wow.
break some stuff down so we can be where we are, today. And so I
Mm-hmm.
tell women, girl, don't be nagging. Don't be doing that.
Mm-mm.
'Cause what scripture say? Oh my God, like,
Mm-hmm.
whoo, don't be nagging your
Yeah.
husband.
Nope.
Give him
Definitely
time
don't
to
do
figure it
it.
out. Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, that's wow. That's such a powerful, powerful story, and it's humbling, because it's so many moments where, I have been that nagging wife, and I have to catch myself when I'm doing it and just say, all right, you a little nitpicky today, calm down, and he used to make this, it's a joke, but he used to call me Nana. Like that's how bad it was. It was his nickname. Like, okay, you're being Nagatha. Like, I'm like, okay, now I gotta change
Wow.
that around
You
because
said
yes,
Agatha. Woo!
Nagatha. Yes, because it was that bad. I didn't think
Wow.
it was that bad, but
Yeah.
according to him, it was. He's like,
Yeah.
no, he's like, you just nagging. He's like, you're so nitpicky. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to communicate, this, and this. And of course, I wanted structure and things a certain way. And that's another
Yeah.
thing. Like when you want stuff a certain way, and it
Yeah.
isn't that way, your partner doesn't do that, your husband's not doing that, or wife's not doing that, right? Then it becomes very easy to fall into that,
Mhm.
to where it's like you're nitpicking and picking apart everything
Mhm.
that they do, and that's
Mhm.
irritating. They don't like
Mhm.
that.
That's true.
So definitely have to be careful about it.
That's true. And what I've seen in the past when counseling with couples, I'm sure you probably, seen this too in your practice and your coaching as well, is that I see sometimes like the couple comes, most of the time women, we're the one talking about everything. And I told him this and I told him that he not listening to me. Well, what I see is that, and I see on both sides with a man or woman, they don't feel safe enough to really express
Right.
themselves because every time they do, it's a rebuttal. Well, you shouldn't feel that way, or you
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't, and that's not true, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so giving each other that space to say, "Hey, this is how I feel. This is my perception of what happened," because we all have different
Mm-hmm.
experiences, and being able to meet each other halfway. And you're not going to always agree, like you just said. I had my
Right.
ways, he had his ways, and so I want things to be a certain way. And like as we
Mm-hmm.
continue to let loose a control, right? Then you'll start seeing a better outcome. And when you guys do talk about hard things, right? I remember I can tell a girl, I can tell you so many times, like, Lord, my husband ain't doing this and he ain't doing that. He said, you can look in the mirror at yourself. He said, look at what you're doing. Girl, God be jacking me up. You talk about your
Wow.
husband, you need to look in the mirror. You got flaws too. I'm like, oh yeah,
Yep.
I
Mm-hmm.
do, don't I?
Right. Yeah. Those are the real conversations. Look.
And most of the time when our husbands,
Yes.
our spouses, the partners, whoever, we're dating, they love us. They don't want to like
Hmm.
say too much to make you feel. And so he wasn't telling me what my
Yeah.
flaws were. He wasn't saying you doing all this, doing all that. He didn't necessarily, do all that. But I'm pretty sure he was thinking, this girl is doing the most.
Yeah.
Because a lot of men
Definitely.
don't like conflict. Most men don't.
No. No,
Yeah.
they don't.
Most men,
Mm-mm.
I say most. I say most because
Right.
it could be the other way around too as well. And
Hmm.
so I just look. I'm passionate about relationships and marriages. And I know God desires for it to be healthy.
Hmm.
Because the power. It's the power of agreement, the power of two
Yes.
people. That's the way
Yes.
it's covenant.
Hmm.
And God wants to use it. So I see it too. The enemy will use anything to try to get you to like self-sabotage what the work that God is trying to do. So, so good.
Hmm.
So good. So do you have another
Yeah.
tip you want to share with us about
I
communication?
do.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think being able to take time outs are very important. When things get a little bit too heated and you feel like it's, you know, you're not making any progress and you're not getting anywhere, being able to take, some time out, just, time apart to breathe and process and think about like what you feel, what you want to express, what you want to communicate, right? Because we're talking about communication. So being able to take that time apart, but you got to come back. I always tell couples, you got to come back and finish the conversation because so many couples, they don't come back and finish the conversation. So it's all of these different conflicts that they have, and it just stacks on top of each other. They never resolve them. And what does that do? Over time, it builds resentment. And so now you begin to communicate less and have less of that intimacy because you're not resolving the issues. Each issue, it don't matter how small, it needs to be resolved.
So, so good. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Hmm.
And so, with that being said, I know that, now you have branched off into doing more coaching. So can you
Hmm.
share with us more about your coaching business and what you do now?
Yes. So it's brand new. It is like fresh. Okay. So I'm building it up, but it's a coaching business called Mind of Christ Coaching that, God really gave to me because I wanted to have the type of coaching that really helps people to focus on God, with every aspect of their life. So whether it's career, whether it's relationships, so marital, premarital, whether it's, managing stress or just changing your mindset, like all of these different areas, like those are some of the key areas that, I want to work more with people in is being able to dedicate every part of your life to God and helping people to get to that place, like having his mind about like, so Lord, what is your mind for me regarding my career? What's your mind for me regarding my relationships? What's your mind for me regarding how I should deal with stress? What's your mind for me regarding um how you should do different, different things, just looking at mindset and things of that nature. So that is the heart of it, is being able to help lead people to develop in that mind of Christ. So it's brand new. So I am still, building up clients and things like that. But I'm excited. I'm very excited about it.
That is so good. I love that name, Mind of Christ Coaching, because you're
Hmm.
teaching them how to have the mind of Christ in all areas. That's amazing.
Hmm.
I love that. I love that. So, can you share with us how to find you on social media? You have any websites? And we'll also put that, you guys, in the description box as well, where you can find her as well.
Yes.
Mhm.
So you can go to my website. It's www.mindofchristcoaching.com. So that is live, it's active. You can book a free consultation, and or individual or couple session. And it has some FAQs on there about just different questions that you may have. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Mind of Christ Coaching Counseling,
Mhm.
because I was using that page also for counseling. So I do a little bit of tips of both. But I wanted the focus to be more on the coaching. So that's the name. And it's the same name on Facebook. So Mind of Christ Coaching and Counseling. So that's where you can find me.
Okay, perfect. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Ms. Dominique, for coming in today and just sharing with us your
Yes.
experience, your knowledge. I know it's going to help somebody.
I pray it
For
does. That's the goal. I
sure.
pray if it's just one person, then that's amazing.
I know, because oftentimes I feel like in the body of Christ, we always, once again, talk to pray, but we also need strategies and tools as well
Right.
to help with that, right? So thank you for
Hmm.
sharing those tips. That's really good.
No problem.
Thank you for tuning in today to today's episode. My prayer is that it has blessed you, and I pray that you will take out time to subscribe and also to leave us a raving review. That matters to us and helps us to really push out our content to new listeners. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our email list at www.faithandmentalwellness.faith. I always forget to mention this, but also do not forget that if you are a life coach or a therapist or anyone working in the mental health field, don't forget that we also have a Faith and Mental Wellness virtual meetup. We meet bi-monthly where we come together, we have prayer, we encourage each other, we ask questions, and just really get to know who's in our network, okay? So be sure to also visit faithandmentalwellness.faith in order for you to learn more about that. Talk to you soon.